guys, how are you? Welcome to another video. Today we'll see how we can use and access Warcraft Logs API via Python. Warcraft Logs API, for those who don't know, Warcraft Logs is basically made by Kira, is a website, is an application which parses Warcraft combat logs, and it's actually very famous. So feel free to check it out. Today we'll deal with the API, and we will go together through the documentation and see how we can build a Python app which can access and extract data from the Warcraft reports. So let's see how to do that. First, we need to make a new client ID and a client secret. In order to do that, we need to go to the client management page, and we'll click create a new client. First, we need to give a name for our application, so let's just give demo project, and then we just need one or more redirect URLs. Because our app is not created yet, we can just simply add a random one like Google, and we can change that after. And because we want our client secret to be visible, we won't tick that button, and we'll simply press create. And voila, this is our client ID and this is our client secret. And now what we will do is we'll copy paste this information and we'll create two environmental variables. So to do that, we'll simply do export. I will name it user ID. So export user ID, and I will add it to my shell, to my Z file, and I will also export the user secret. Let me copy paste my user secret as well. Let me restart the cell. Now you can see that I can access my variables normally from my environment. And why am I doing this? Because I don't want this information to be publicly available whenever I push my code on GitHub or whatever. So now we are set. We have created a client, so we can simply proceed with the Python code. So let's see. Here I've made a directory, as you can see, named Warcraft Logs, and I have initialized a Git repository. Inside it I have a makefile and I have an app. So let's see. First I will import requests and OS, and I will make a function named getToken. So first of all, if we go back to the documentation, we can see we will follow the client credentials flow, and this flow is accessed, the API is accessed under API version 2 client, and we can see here that we need to send a post request to the server, and we need to provide the data, the grant type equals client credentials, and the client ID with the client secret to generate a token, an access token for the API. So let's see how we can do that. First of all, we can also see that for the token URI, we need to copy this URL. So let's save that as token URL. And then we have to provide, we can see here we need to provide grant type equals client credentials. So grant type, we will make a dictionary, and then I will make a session, and now I will send those data to the server. And I have to provide the client ID and the user ID and the user secret that you have stored in my environment, the client ID and the client secret. As we displayed previously, we can simply access it like that. So we will simply do user ID get user secret. You can see here again user secret. First, let's see if my response is successful. I will call the function getToken. I will store it to a response variable, and I will print the response. So let's see. Let's run the make. Yes, my response is successful, but still I want to access its content, so I can simply do .json. Yes, so I have an access token, but now this is not very useful because I want to store it in my system, so we'll make a new variable named store, and it will be a boolean. So if store, if I want to store, and the response has a status code of 200, that means that the request was okay, the response was okay, then I simply want to store it. So I will make a function named store token, in which I will pass the response. So let's make another function named store token, which will accept a response object. And now basically I want to make a new file. So let's make a hidden file named credentials.json, in which I will store my access token, my information. Right now I need to import the JSON module, and I can simply do JSON dump. I want the response, and I need to specify the file, the destination, and also to accept OS error. If for some reason we fail to read the file, then we'll just simply print the error and return none. Alright. So let's see. And also I need another method to read the token. This will take no arguments, I just need to read the file. So we'll store the token in an access token variable, and since this is a JSON file, I can simply do if everything is okay. Print the error and return none. So if everything is okay here, I will simply return the access token. And I can actually let me try that to see if everything works as intended. So let's run the make. Okay, seems everything works as intended. Let's see if our file has been created. Yes, so our file is here, and now I can comment out this information, and let's see if I can read the file, if I can read the token. So token equals read token, and let's try to print the token. Let's again run the make. Okay, it seems that everything is working. Perhaps here we can simply return the access token instead of fetching all the information. So now it just returns the access token that we need. Amazing. So basically now what we need to do, since we made our client and we retrieved an access token for our application, we simply need to use this access token. If we go back to the documentation, we can see here this part is finished. So after an application retrieves an access token, it provides the token when making requests to API resources. So to access API resources, we need to include an authorization header as displayed here. So let's copy paste that and let's go back to our Python script. So here we will make another function named retrieve headers. This function will return the headers to access API resources. This will be a dictionary. So what you need to return is authorization and the token bearer alongside with the token itself. I saw here that I created a read token function, so I can use an f string and pass it directly in here. And then I will close the dictionary. Amazing. So let's make a new function named get data. So how do I access the API resources now that I can have tokens? Now have my client, I have my token. If we go back to the documentation, we can see here that the public API is found at this endpoint. For the private API, we need to go via the user root, but we will simply access the public API for now. So let's copy paste that and let's name public API URL, public URL. Let's name it like that. So we need to access endpoints on this public API URL, and let's go back to the documentation. We can see here that Warcraft logs is using GraphQL schemas, and we can see the schema by clicking here. Also I forgot to mention that you can also use Insomnia, which Insomnia is an amazing tool. I use it myself, so I strongly recommend to download to play with the API. But for now we will stick to Python and see. We can also go to the schema, to the documentation, and here you can actually see what type of queries, GraphQL schemas you can use to fetch data from the reports that you want, or game data in general. I think we will access report data here, and if we go back to our script, first of all, let's try to make a session again. This time we'll use a get method and the session, and let's store the response, and here we'll use the public URL. And now we have to specify the headers. So here we'll specify the headers, and we will just retrieve the headers because we made this function here. And we also want some data. So first of all, we need an argument here named query, and we will have some keyword arguments. I will explain why. And basically here we need something. We need a data dictionary in which we will specify the query that we want, and also a variables. And in the variables we will add any keyword argument. So for instance, If I want to access a specific report from Warcraft logs, I need to specify the code of the report. So here we will have a keyword argument with code equals the specified code for the report. And simply now what we will do is we do JSON equals data. And for now, for the moment, let's see how this will work, and let's return our response in a JSON format. So let's make a query. So the query, we need to make a GraphQL query, and we will access the report data endpoint. So we need a variable named code, which will be a string, and inside that query basically we need to access the report data. So here we'll do report data, and from the documentation we can see that we need the report. So we need the report, and here we need to put the code variable, and from the report I need to fetch whatever data I want. So for instance, I can fetch, yes, I can fetch fights. So here we'll do fights, and as you can see we can specify the difficulty. From what I'm aware, we want boss fights, so the difficulty is 3, at least for classic servers. And we just need to specify from the fight what data we want. So I want the ID of the fight, the name, and perhaps the start time and the end time of the fight. And I just need to close the curly brackets that I opened. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And simply now I just need to pass this query to my getData function. But also I need to specify the code, since I have declared it as a variable, so it expects me to pass a code value here. So let's comment out this part, and let's add some documentation. Fetches data from Warcraft logs, public API, please provide the query and the parameters. Okay, so simply now let's make a response object and call our function getData, and let's specify the code. Now let's go back to Warcraft logs to find the report. Let's go to the classic servers. Let's go to PC, and here let's go to let's go to let's go to Sunwell Plateau, and let's see all reports to fetch on random report. So let's see this one, for instance. Now we can simply use, this is the code of the report, so we can simply use that. And we need it as a string, and let's thereafter print our response. It's clear, and let's run the make again. Okay, what did I do? Okay. Okay, I have a problem with indentation apparently. Let's try to run it again. Oh yes, here I need difficulty. I don't have permission to use this word. Alright, let's change the report then. Let's use this code instead. So here, let's use the code. Let's run the make again. Okay, amazing. Now you can see I fetched the data from this report in Sunwell Plateau, and I can see all the fights here when they started and when they ended, the timestamps, and we can actually we don't want this part. We actually want to access the list, so we can do a nice trick. We can import from the functools the reduce function, and simply we can do here, we can specify some parameters that we want to ditch. So we want to ditch data, report, and the fights. So simply here we can do report. We can specify our accumulator, our reducers, and we can simply do get all. And here we want the items that we need to ditch. So for instance, data, report data, report, and fights. Yes. Run make again. Amazing. If this if the reduce function confuses you, you don't have to use it. You can simply use the traditional get. And now you can see that we have extracted all the fights from the log. And pretty much that's it. We actually managed to find all the logs. Perhaps I can display one more example. And I strongly recommend to go to the documentation and see further what you can do. I can show you an example of a bot I made here, that you can simply use the endpoints from the public API to create some very sophisticated applications. For instance, you can create and deploy your bot on your Discord bot on Heroku and be able to extract some very special data like cumulative damage over time, like for instance in that case here. So I hope you liked my video. Feel free to subscribe, and see you again soon. Bye.